Today I have a Sony DTC-60ES DAT machine in for service, and this one won't advance the tape properly and has an eject problem and doesn't queue up properly and all kinds of problems. Let's get this one going. This is a Sony DTC60ES. It's a Sony ES DAT, a recorder that was brought in for service. Complaint on this one here is it's slow on fast forward and rewind, doesn't open properly, and the search doesn't work properly on it. So let's get a look at this and see what the problem is. So let's first of all put a tape in and see if it plays, and we'll check out the search and fast forward and rewind, etc. That part's working. Dropouts on this tape. This is an old tape. There's the problem there. Take a look at this. We'll get a shot of the display here. Yeah, those are dropouts on that tape, so don't worry about that. This is just an old tape I'm using for this. But if I go to search, you'll watch this is the time code, the absolute time, and it'll overshoot, and now it's got to back up. Look at how slow it's going. And this time it didn't even find the beginning of the track. So rewind is not working. And now either is fast forward. There was one root cause that was causing all the problems on this that I got to, but it took a while to find it. So I'm going to keep this one pretty short. For my Patreon viewers, you guys will see all the headaches I had to go through because I had to take this thing apart a couple times to get the root cause solved. So let's take this mechanism apart and see mechanically why it's not working. This is one of the Sonys with the nice rosewood side panel, so we're going to take these off first because usually there are other screws underneath here. Some of them at least have other screws under the side panels because the side panels were designed so that they could be removed if someone didn't want them. And as you can see, this one's already had the capacitors replaced in the head preamp. No, I did not do this. This is not some of my work, although I have done work just like that on my own decks, because I have a deck similar to this. I believe the owner actually did that preamp fix after watching one of my videos and corrected his preamp because it had a problem when he got it. All distortion. I just want to observe what it does when it's operating. So it sounds like a clutch is slipping. Okay, the take-up spool is stopped now. Okay, I don't know if you guys saw that or not. Let me see if I can get a camera angle. What's happened is the take-up spool is stalling. And when I put it into reverse, it was trying to reverse the tape, but the take-up spool was sticking. I think we have a break that might be stuck on here. Let's see if we can get a better shot so you guys can see down into here where I'm looking with the flashlight. So look down at the supply reel here when I go into reverse search. It's not turning now, you see. probably explain why he's having trouble ejecting the tape too. See if it'll eject. Okay, we gotta take this mechanism apart and see why that reel is sticking. So we'll power the unit down. I'm going to remove the screws that hold the deck in so that I can take the deck out and take it apart and see what's causing the take-up hub to stick, because that's probably all of his problems, is the take-up hub is sticking. It may need to be lubricated, or maybe the brake pad itself that's causing it to stick. So the deck on these comes out by just removing a couple screws. I've already taken the front panel off here. It just snaps off this piece so that it's out of the way. Hot day to be working out in the shop today. I tell you, it's like, I don't know, feels like it's about 30 Celsius out here today. It's actually 25, but it feels hotter because the humidex, right? It's 25 in here, but the humidex is quite high. So it feels a lot warmer than it is. Sure been having a warm summer this year. And people say that global warming isn't real. The deck pops out. We can unplug the deck. I'll unplug the ribbon cable here, so I don't want to damage it, and we'll unplug the other plugs that unplug from the board. That way I can work on the deck, push the rest of the chassis out of the way to work on the deck. Sony used a couple of different mechanisms for their home DAT machines. The one I have, I've got actually both types of mechanisms. This is the more consumer version of a deck that I had that I sold, which had one of these mechanisms on it. I think it was my 57 or 570 that had one like this. My 75 ES and my 680 have a different mechanism, and my 75 ES actually has a separate motor for the take up and supply spool, but this one here uses a motor, drives it with a belt, a tooth belt, so this belt's never going to wear out, right? It's never going to fail. So one of those nylon tooth driven belts, and they don't fail. But this one here has got clutches in it that can get jammed up, and it's got a couple of pin switches on the side here that need to be cleaned. If I want to open up the mechanism, I just turn the loading gear on the side of the loading pulley, and that'll lift the mechanism out of the way so that I can see underneath here. And I got to take this whole mechanism apart because I'm interested in this take-up hub. I think it's sticking. There it is. Okay, now the whole mechanism lifts off and falls apart, so we're going to just set that aside so that it doesn't fall apart. Now I got the chassis stripped down so that I can actually access the mechanism. These are the pin switches on here that these ones here, first of all, and there's I think there's two more of them on here that do need to be cleaned if they haven't been. They're operated by this cam. There's a sliding cam here that moves back and forth, and that's what loads and unloads the mechanism, as you can see. The guy that owns this says he cleaned the pin switches, but I doubt that he tore it down to this level to get at these pin switches that are below here. He could have very well just cleaned these ones, thinking that those are the pin switches that need to be cleaned. These ones are to detect the type of tape that's in place and to detect if the record safety tab is tripped or not. So we'll just remove the circuit board. These pin switches here do definitely need to be cleaned. They definitely go bad and they cause a lot of headaches. What they do is they tell the microprocessor what mechanical state the mechanism is in. And when they get dirty, the mechanism doesn't know what position the mechanical timing is in. It doesn't send the right signals to do things like turn the solenoid on and off to release the brakes. I'm just going to give these switches a shot of Deoxit D100, which is 100% pure deoxit in the one shot. One shot applicator. We'll just make sure that these switches are activated multiple times and then give it another shot of cleaner just to make sure that we've got them cleaned good. See, this is how I like it to work when I'm working. Nice and quiet. Where I can think. Because, whoops, that's the wrong screw. That's the metal screw that goes in here. Because sometimes when you're working on electronics and anything, you know, the last thing you want is all kinds of racket. Whether it be crows screeching or eagles screeching or dogs barking or lawnmowers going or kids screaming when you're trying to concentrate on some of these pieces of equipment. You like it nice and quiet. Today is a perfect example. There's nobody around. It's a holiday weekend here and I guess everybody's away. Okay, that's how that works. There's a solenoid here that's activated to release the brakes. And it's supposed to release the brakes, I think, from both hubs. Just got to take a look and see whether the brake pads themselves are in place, because they have a tendency to fall off. If we thread up the mechanism, normally this brake is released when it's unloaded because it's winding the tape back on and this one is locked. So as I thread up the mechanism, we'll see that this brake will become latched once the mechanism is in the stop position, which is this position here. The pinch roller is not engaged and this reel is latched, as is this one. And if I pull the clutch in or pull the brake release in, it releases the brakes to both this hub and that one. Now they're locked. As this continues the loading cycle to engage the pinch roller on, that releases the brakes. Eject the tape. The motor reverses the other direction. Tape guides return. And then the other motor comes on to lift the tape up. Another thing that happens when the solenoid is engaged, if you notice the loading motor here that operates the pinch roller, it pulls it under tension, and then that's what stops this. There's a little rubber pad here. That's what stops the mechanism from dropping back. So, and that is again activated when the cam switch signals that the tape is fully loaded, so that it's in play mode or whatever mode it's in. It turns on the plunger or the solenoid, which locks this motor in place with this little tab here and keeps the pinch roller also locked and releases the locks here on the reel hubs. So switch is dirty. It's not signaling the microprocessor that the tape transport is fully loaded, and it releases the solenoid. And once the solenoid releases, if we watch here, it'll release this catch, which, because there's no voltage holding the motor, they don't keep voltage on the motor to keep it in the fully play mode. As soon as that releases, that's going to spring back because of the tension pulling back on the pinch roller. So to go into play, it cranks the pinch roller in place, and then the solenoid locks to hold it in play. And then when you press stop, it releases the solenoid and it backs tension off on the pinch roller. It's a pretty simple mechanism, and everything's based on these two switches working correctly. Oh, the silence has been broken. That thing that sounds like a jet engine going out there. That's my car charging. I've got it plugged in and it's charging up, and because it's so warm out today, it's turned on the air conditioning, or the coolant conditioner, to cool the battery as it's charging. Makes more noise when this thing's, the fans are, of course, it's got a radiator on it, right, for the aircon, and it's got an electric fan on it, so the fans have fired up on the heat exchanger. Thing makes more noise when it's charging than when I'm driving it. I think I try to make sure the solenoid's tight, because on mine it came loose. I should lift the bottom gear assembly and everything out. It should all come out as one assembly. I've got all the screws out. Yes, okay, that's the base. This is an adjustment screw that adjusts the position of this solenoid here, which is what meshes the clutch back and forth. And this one's supposed to be paint sealed, and it's not. But I just want to inspect the brakes and stuff on here. You see the brake pads have a tendency to fall off on these. There's felt pads, and they tend to fall off.
And that's exactly what's happened. You can see the remains of the brake pads sitting on top of the black arms there.
You get all kinds of crap that gets into these gears, and then they don't work properly.
Mm-hmm. Just as I thought. The felt pads have come off of these. There used to be a couple little felt pads on these brakes, and they've come off. You can see the remnants of the glue. Right there, you can see it, I think. You can see the remnants of the glue that held the little felt pads in place. And that glue is sticky. It's like double-sided tape. I don't know where the felt pads went, but they're not in here. And this one will be the same on the other side. They're actually friction clutches. There's no spring on it. They're friction. The adjustment screw right over here adjusts how much tension gets placed on these when they engage, and that determines how much stopping power they have. In this case, they're sticking because of the glue that's from the double-sided tape that was on there. They're actually sticking to, you can see it here. You can see the residue that's remaining, and they stick. That's why these are sticking, because they're sticking to the hub. You can see the residue that was remaining on here. I'm going to clean this off. And they probably work fine without the felt pads, but I'm going to clean the glue residue, because what's happening is they're sticking to the little arms here. What they did is they put like a little piece of felt with a piece of double-sided tape to hold it on. It's kind of a piss poor way to secure it, because eventually what happens is that the bond of the glue breaks, and then the pad comes off, and then the double-sided tape gets stuck to the hub itself, causes the reel to stop turning. You can see it right there. It's yellow, and it's sticky. So we got to clean that off. Hopefully that'll fix this thing. Gonna use some alcohol to break down the glue bond and take it off. And it probably happened when this thing was sitting. I think this DAT machine probably sat around for a few years before. The guy that brought it to me just bought it, and it didn't work. Of course. And always the way. You know, people sell things that don't work all the time. But I think probably what happened is it was sitting around for a long time, and the just the adhesive glue that held the little brake pads in place deteriorated and leaked through the felt and got onto the actual spindle itself and caused it to stick. This is part of the clutch, and it'll probably work okay without the felt pads. Because the plastic wheel will still make contact with the plastic and stop it or slow it down. Ultimately, you know, replacing those pads would be the best fix you could do, but it's just temporary because they're going to fail again. They failed the first time, they'll fail again. One back together, the other one goes on like this. The washer goes on top. Cut washer on top of that to hold it in place. And that's what holds the reel table. And then when this pulls in, we just have to adjust it so that it is going to make contact. And that's done by adjusting the position of the plunger here. You can see when I adjust this, right, you can see the reel pads, the reel tables, these levers move back a bit further. Okay, now we'll try putting this thing back together whether I get any better results this time. So last time it certainly didn't give me the results I was hoping for. And then the board goes back in here, something like this. Of course, we gotta get the wires away from the pulley. And these other ones here would hold on the circuit board. I'm just watching the news now, and the headline just came up that somebody got hit by a train. A pedestrian got hit by a train. I'm trying to picture to myself, how does a pedestrian get hit by a train? Like, trains are usually pretty loud. You would think that if you were walking along the tracks and a train came up blowing his horn, that you would get the hell out of the way. There goes my car again. Okay, the mechanism's back together. Let's drop it back in and see if it works this time. Oh, wait a minute. It's not back together. I gotta put this one last piece on the door. That goes on like that, and like that. So that it'll open the door up. Funny, you know, I fixed a few of these for people, and person I hadn't seen in a while. Ran into him. He says, "Hey, you're a DAT guy." I said, "What? DAT guy? You know, the guy that fixed my DAT." Oh! Okay, everything's plugged in. Moment of truth. Turn on the power. Looks like it's loading properly. Let's try playing. Ah, that's a little better. The reels are not sticking now. Check this out. More importantly, let's try the AMS, because that's where the complaint was before, was the AMS. So if I press the AMS button, is it going to cue and rewind the tape back and start the track up at the beginning of the track like it's supposed to? There it goes. There it goes back like it's supposed to. Go to the next track. Let's go back to track number 1. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I think that's it. I think that'll take me back to 1. Oh, I think I went back too far. It's right back to the beginning. Oh well, close enough. It'll still play it. Just have to press play. That's all. Skip ahead 3. I'll skip ahead 3 more. I think there's enough tracks. There's enough space on this tape. I may be running out of space. I don't know how long this tape is. And as you can see, it's now not getting those dropouts. It wasn't so much that it was dropouts, it was because the tape tension was incorrect, because that sticky residue from the old felt pads, which are really not necessary in this thing, once they came off and that sticky double-sided tape residue got onto the tape hubs, it was causing them to stick every time they made a rotation, which was causing the tape tension to change, and when the tape tension changed, that was causing tracking errors, making it drop out, sound like dropouts, and the sound was cutting in and out. So I'm pretty confident that I got this one. We'll go back 3 tracks. There we go. It's fixed. DAT Guy Strikes Again. I'll have to remember that one. I know it's old, but that's what a customer used to call me when I worked in the business. There was a local musician who was, at the time, he was in a very popular band. I won't say what the band was, but in Canadian music, they were big. They were here for a good time. And I used to service all of his equipment for him. And a good old friend of mine that I've known for many, many years. He was the keyboard player in that particular band. And I kind of threw a little clue out there. So if anybody caught the clue, they'll know who I'm talking about. But I used to service those equipment all the time. His cassette deck and his DAT machine. He had a studio in his house. And he used to say, "It's the DAT guy," because I used to do his work on him. He had some Tascam DA, I think they were DA30s I used to work on for him all the time. And his cassette decks and stuff. He had a couple Tascam DA30s, a Tascam cassette deck, and he had an R-DAT, which used a Super VHS tape. It was a 8-track multi-track in his home studio. And I did some music videos for this guy too back in the day. Anyway, this one's fixed. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next one real soon. Bye for now.